legal luminaries, welcome back to The Global Lawyer, a fantastic project of the São Paulo Lawyers Institute celebrating the remarkable milestone of IASP's 150th anniversary in November this year. Here we bridge legal minds from across the globe, breaking down borders, one conversation at a time. I'm excited to share that our initiative under the banner of IASP is already bearing fruit, significantly enhancing our international presence. We are seeing growing interest from legal scholars and practitioners around the world, from the United States, the UK, and beyond. Many of them are eager to join us soon on the podcast. We'll be diving into timely topics like the transfer of personal data, AI, and energy. In fact, there's a long and growing list of prospective interviewees who are keen to share their career journeys, achievements, and insights into the legal profession. And following this high note, I'm thrilled to kick off the 5th episode of our podcast, introducing today's guest as a prime example of the caliber of voices we are committed to bringing to our audience, Professor Kleber Zanchim, who is among the distinguished scholars contributing to our mission of elevating the global dialogue on legal practice. Professor Kleber is a founding partner at SABZ law firm, and he has been leading and advising on complex and high-value contracts, financing transactions, real estate, infrastructure projects, agribusiness, distressed deals, and conflicts resolution for more than 18 years, and is recognized locally and internationally as a strategic lawyer in all of these economic sectors, including energy, chemical, and oil and gas, foreign trade, retail market, food and beverage, banks, and fintechs. Ooh. He has a PhD in contracts and infrastructure and a postdoctoral in business administration, both from the University of São Paulo. And he received multiple awards and rankings from prestigious publications and organizations. He is passionate about delivering innovative and effective solutions for his clients and contributing to the development of the legal and academic community, giving classes at the most relevant law schools in Brazil, and writing papers and books on different practical matters. Well, I have to say, and here I'm sharing my testimony on his exceptional level of knowledge. I had the pleasure of meeting Professor Kleber during my Master of Laws in the discipline of corporate transactions and M&A. And I like to note that he is admired by his students. When he walks into the classroom, there's this buzz of anticipation and a mix of nerves and enthusiasm, because his classes are always so dynamic and thought-provoking. He doesn't go easy with his students, and he pushes them to think critically and tackle complex legal issues head on. But by the end of his classes, even if you feel like your brain has been put through a ringer, you walk away with a profound sense of accomplishment and wealth of new knowledge. I can confidently say that he is one of the leading figures in the new generation of Brazilian corporate law. This is not only due to his academic background, which includes degrees in law, economics, business administration, and accounting, but also because of his rich cultural background. His expanded view of the world is reflected in the multifaceted perspective he brings to complex legal business issues and the creativity with which he develops solutions that are both legally effective and commercially fruitful. Speaking from personal experience, I can say that one never leaves a meeting with Professor Kleber without gaining new insights that go way beyond technical knowledge, extending to real-world appreciation and application of legal expertise. Professor Kleber, it's a genuine honor to have you join us today.
Hi, Marina. Thank you for this presentation. I'm giving all these acknowledgements to the new friendship we have, because I'm sure I don't deserve all of them. And it's my pleasure to be here as a member of IASP. I've been a member since the beginning of 2010, probably 15 years now. And we have met recently, and I'm learning to admire your work to point out different aspects of our legal profession. I would say different because we are not here discussing the practices itself, but the connections between practices and the other challenges we have in our life. And I would say that this is very interesting because sometimes as Brazilians, we think we have a poorer contribution to the international legal community compared to our big neighbors like US, or our historical references like Italy or German. But this is not true, because we have here a country full of challenges. And as I usually say, probably a Brazilian lawyer would be able and comfortable to practice law in US and in European countries, but I cannot assure that a US lawyer or an European lawyer would do the same down here in Brazil, because we have our idiosyncrasies and our challenges. And so this is very interesting to have somebody like you promoting this kind of discussion, because I'm sure we can spread different perspectives of a big country like Brazil with these particular challenges, and show to the world that we are not a second level professionals or a second level legal culture, but it's the contrary. We can share very good experiences and very solid legal backgrounds, and somehow promote Brazil as a big market for our legal professionals. So thank you very much for this opportunity. It's an honor.
Thank you so much, and I couldn't agree more with you. You're fully right. And now, could you share with us what initially inspired you to pursue a career in law? Of course, this is a question that we always ask, but more specifically, what led you to focus on corporate law and distressed deals? Because I'm struck by how accomplished and fulfilled you are in both your teaching and your practice. So I think our viewers will greatly benefit from hearing about the experiences and decisions that shaped your career path.
Okay, so it's quite a long story, but we can make the long story short. I remember that when I was a teenager, I was planning to become an engineer because of an influence of an uncle that is my second father. But I was not that expert in math. I would say I was not bad in math, but I was not that expert in math. So this would be a kind of challenge. But I think that the main challenge that I had to circumvent was the fact that I am daltonic, and so if I would decide to be an engineer, an electric engineer, for example, I would put my clients at risk, because I could make some mistakes with the colors of the electric
of the wires,
for example.
What wire should I cut? The green one or the red one?
Yes, and I'd say that when I was about to decide on what career I would follow, law came up almost from nowhere, because I don't have this reference in my family. But this is connected to what I do nowadays, because I'm from the countryside of São Paulo, the city of Marília, and my family used to be a family of entrepreneurs, very good in terms of having good ideas to start new business, but very bad in management. And so we had several challenges and difficulties, and my family entered into bankruptcy when I was, let's say, 12 or 13. And then I can tell that probably my first distressed deal transactions was negotiating when I was 15 or 16, the selling of some goods that remained from one of these business my parents had. So I negotiated the selling it to a kind of competitor, And I think that I'm very lucky to have this experience since I was young, because one I consider that one thing that is very important to form the way you think is the practical experience you have, and there is a difference between the experience you have assisting your clients and the experience you have managing your own problems. And so
Living the problem.
Yes, I learned fully through skin in the game, and then I was naturally moved to a profession that could allow me to do this kind of stuff, I believe. And again, I feel myself very lucky to have the chance of entering at University of São Paulo, coming from the countryside, from a family that is not, let's say, a family with all the resources for that. And then I found right in the beginning of the university, of the bachelor, many opportunities of applying this kind of experience. I started working in my first year, and from that time on, everything I have done somehow is connected to this distressed situation.
My God, you were, again, say it again, you were 15.
Yes,
when
my family entered in bankruptcy when I was about 13, and the selling of the remaining assets was completed about 2 years later. So I was 15 years old, and
awesome.
I cannot tell you why my mom said me to handle it, but she did, and I did it.
Wow. Well, thank her. Yes, she was. There was something in her mind that told her to do that, and
probably. It's the mommy guess.
Yes, definitely.
And so, in the university, I was pleased to have Professor Junqueira as my mentor, and he was. I usually say that the few things I know about law, I learned everything from him, and he was more than a professor. He was a mentor, because he gave me the chance to work with him in many of his writings, and so if you check some of his books, I am part of this articles and assessments he has done on different legal issues. And he was my professor at the PhD, and this is I would say, the anchor of my private law career. But what is interesting, that my first academic research, was not in the private law, was in the constitutional law, because I applied for a scholarship at CNPq, which is a federal agency we have here that supports students, and so I was accepted. And my first research that ended up as a monography, but I have never published it, was about constitutional law, and I started it in the second year of the university and completed it in the third. And then I went to during this time, I had another very interesting experience that is very relevant for my current career. I am one of the founders of the Sanfran Junior, which is the junior law firm, if I can put this way, that was born in the Department of Business Law of the University of São Paulo. And
this is fantastic. This is a great initiative. Yeah.
Yes, because this was actually the first junior company inside a legal school, because we had some restriction. We usually have we still have some restrictions from our regulators here in Brazil, OAB.
Yes.
And so this is very hard to be a junior firm in the legal field, but I think we with the help, I would say, the outstanding help from some of professors like Paulo Forgione, Raquel Stein, Calixto Salomão, they helped us a lot, and so we were able to start an organization, a very, I would say, tiny organization with some students. And at that time, the civil code was changing, because I'm talking of the scenario. This story started in 2001, and our civil code changed in 2002. So at that time, all the other junior companies from other schools of the University of São Paulo, engineering, business, and
economy.
University of you have economies. Yeah, we have several of this business, these junior firms in the University of São Paulo. They needed some help to amend their bylaws in order to adapt it to the new regulation.
New code, the new regulation.
Yes. And this is what we have done. And then we learn many things: how to deal with clients, and how to pursue the timeline, how to negotiate, because we did that for free, but we had a kind of references from this other junior companies for new jobs, and so we are there with the unique purpose of learning. But we had to negotiate things with them, I would say, not financially speaking, but how we're going to extract some value from this work we were doing for them.
What a great opportunity. This is fantastic.
Yes. It's amazing. And so I was at that time working in Sanfran Junior, and then making this research in constitutional law. And in 2003, if I'm not wrong, I went to the market, to the corporate law firms here in São Paulo, where I learned to be, I would say, a practitioner. And then I was very lucky to have good mentors as well, experienced lawyers that taught me a lot. And but 2 years later, when I was about to graduate, I felt that my goals were not exactly connected to work in a big firm, in a big law, the way you say here. That maybe because of this family influence, I would have to try my chances and become an entrepreneur. And then I left the firm, and again I applied for a scholarship, because I had to present my final thesis, final monography. And Junqueira was again, and now at that time I was working with him, but he was the first time that he was my mentor in this research. And then I did, because it was a requirement for graduation. And this was my first book.
Wow.
This resulted in my first book about the business contracts. And I decided at that time to start my own firm, along with the colleagues that started Sanfran Junior. So SABZ law firm was born actually in Sanfran Junior, and then some years later we were able to start a real law firm. And this is what we did. And of course, we have done that without anything. We didn't have a headquarter, we didn't have a client, we had nothing. We just had our pretentious
no, your ambition and your
our ambition. They're willing to succeed. And we started with what is called nowadays a co-working, but at that time we didn't have this name. But we have a kind of virtual offices, because and we were probably one of the first clients of the first virtual office in the city of São Paulo. An entrepreneur decided to start this business at Avenida Vergueiro. He owned an office there and decided to rent a kind of time sharing renting in this office. And then you had a secretary, you had a telephone number, and if you needed to meet a client, you had a space there. And this is how we started. And right after that, I would say 6 months later, we then were ready to rent our own place, and we started nearby São Francisco, the São Paulo's law school, for many reasons, because the rental was cheap at that time, and because of the real estate scenario in the downtown of São Paulo. This for sure was one of the main reasons. But the other reason was that all the partners were at that time in post-graduation, master's or PhD. And
so you had to be near.
We had to be close. So it's a very fast movement. As we know, in São Paulo, time is a complicated thing. So for us, it was very, very important to be there. It gave us time to study, because in the beginning of the firm, we had very few things to do. So we devoted our time for our researches. And then once I started, because when I was graduated, Professor Junqueira told me that it was quite an order that I had to move on with my academic career, and I had to start. And Junqueira was so brilliant. I'm suspicious talking about him because I really love him. And but he told me that I should apply for directly for the PhD, not for masters in the beginning, but directly for the PhD. At that time, in law school, there was let's say, you had two roles. The natural one was applying at the Fulvestre. Fulvestre was responsible, and I think it still is responsible for selecting the candidates. It's a kind of contest. Then you have to apply and make a test with legal content and prove you have some proficiency in other languages. But then you had at the committee, the post-graduation committee inside the law school, the opportunity of applying for a direct PhD. And he told me that I had to do that because I had at that time two researches. One was in constitutional law, the other one was my final monography, and he understood that I could do that directly, and this is what I did. I applied directly.
When was that? Was
2005.
5. Okay.
2005. And then I started directly in the PhD in 2006, and this is also the beginning of SABZ law firm. And so I had to study a lot for this PhD, and I had to put in place a new business at that time, without many things to do at the firm, a lot of things to do at the university, and following this PhD efforts or commitments, I started giving classes. And then this is a new story, because I started giving classes for that schools devoted to prepare candidates for public contests. So Damásio, what we call cursinhos.
So you taught there also.
Yes, in many of them. And then I had the chance to apply for a spot at FECAP, but to give classes. They don't have law school there, but to give classes to the graduation in business and the graduation in accounting. So I started being a professor in graduation for non-lawyers, and in post-graduation, if we can say this way, for those that were trying to pass some public contests and became public employees. And then I learned how to adapt my language, how to create, I would say, some engagement along with the classes. And this was very, very important, because I started not from the crème de la crème, I would say that way. But you had to study you had to prepare your mind. Your mindset would have to be changed to adapt to this new audience. Yes. And I did that for some years, and once it was in 2007, I started giving classes, but not regularly, at Insper and GV, 2007. But only in 2008, I effectively started to have my classes or my annual program, and also at FIA. FIA is a foundation of the University of São Paulo Business School, and so I then concentrated my time to work with this entity. So I was in GV, I was in Insper, and was in FIA, and at that time I was working 18 hours a day, about 18 hours a day.
You didn't
and,
sleep. You had
yeah,
time
about
for that.
no sleep, and I was giving classes also during the weekends. So
Wow.
I was during the whole entire week and the weekends, and during the weekends I used to travel because we had classes in other cities, so not in São Paulo. And from 2009 on, this is what I can tell you. I was tested at the highest level of my capabilities and health.
Oh my, yes, that's stressing. Wow, it's amazing. How many years did you manage to? Okay, I couldn't be there for any a week or a month, but for how long have you been in this stressful, I could say, mode in this?
About 10 years, I would say. About 10 years.
Oh my
very,
God.
very, very hard working.
I can't believe
I had a
10
break.
years.
I had a brief break when I had to complete my PhD researches, because I went to London School of Economics, because I wrote about public-private partnerships. And
Yes,
at that
this is
time,
very interesting.
Yeah, and at that time we had almost nothing written here in Brazil. Our law was entered in force in the end of 2004, and so we had very few projects and no academic backgrounds on that. So I went to LSE to complete this research, and when I came back in 2009, I would say that I was in the right time and in the right spot, because then here in Brazil, the largest construction companies decided to change their business from simply construction work to concessions, and very few people had a slightest idea on what PPP was.
Yes.
Yes, people, I would say, used to understand better concessions, traditional concessions, but PPP has his particularities. And then I was here, and then I started to work a lot for this heavy construction industry, and my career was, I would say, 80% or 90% concentrated in this, because before this opportunity, we were a very real estate law firm. We were in the real estate market was our main market. Was a circumstantial thing as well, because as you probably remember, we had here in Brazil the first big IPOs by 2005, 2006. And at that time, real estate was very interesting, and we will return to this when we talk about, for example, agribusiness in this conversation. At that time, my view, it's my particular view, the real estate law here in Brazil was very traditional. What I mean about that, the lawyers, and of course we had very, very excellent lawyers at that time, but the lawyers used to work on, let's say, deeds or pre-contracts, or somehow the incorporation of simple legal entities. But at that time,
land development.
Yes, but at that time, the market was not sophisticated in terms of financials, in terms of size, in terms of number of competitors. And then from 2000, I would say from 2004 on, the world saw the potential Brazil has in this field, what called the attention of big private equity or real estate investment funds. And then that was the opportunity for our local firms to become global, I would say, and to be known and to be invested by these foreigners. And this required a very curious thing. I'm not generalizing, please don't get me wrong, but many of the traditional lawyers in this field, the real estate field, they didn't speak English. And so what happened was that the companies, because of the bank's pressure, they had to change their legal structure and having someone able to discuss the deals with the foreigners.
Yeah.
And at that time, we had some friends recently graduated that would probably be junior lawyers in these firms, but they ended up being kind of managers because they spoke
because
English.
Of the language skills.
Yes, and of course, those friends could have hired anybody in this country, but they had the reference of their colleagues like ourselves.
Yes.
And then we started working for those firms.
Wow, this is incredible.
Yes, of course, not at the IPO side, because this is
yes,
for
yes,
big
yes.
law. Yeah, but for the core business, when you're talking about due diligence and the project's approval and the litigation regarding the project. So what was the core business of these companies? We were there, and we had the chance to work with these dear colleagues, and this is what SABZ was from 2005, 2006 on, because of this particular scenario, the right time and the right spot. But from 2009 on, we moved following the changing in the market from the real estate, but not from, and we haven't abandoned for sure this market, but we just, I would say, reoriented our efforts to the infrastructure, because this was then the new boom in Brazil. At that time, we were a candidate, Brazil was a candidate for World Cup and Olympic Games. And the companies, the construction companies were preparing themselves for that. And at that time, this is also my personal view, because of the development of our capital markets and financial markets following the real estate, the infrastructure companies had a new window for raising capital and developing big projects. So the real estate opened this gate. And so the infrastructure companies were able to jump in and design what we call project finance, with all the complexities it has. And then we were there again.
I can't believe it. Omnipresent. Yeah. You were everywhere at the right time, at the right place. Amazing, amazing. What a journey! What a journey.
Yes.
Wow. Well, yeah.
And then we worked in this particular field from 2008, 2009, up to the crash of Lava Jato, the crash of what we know that happened here in Brazil. And then we reached 2016. Our main clients were in full distress. And then we entered in the distressed deals.
Okay, always an opportunity. Okay, turning everything into opportunity. Oh, that's so great. That's so great.
We had the chance, we had the experience. We started working in the distressed deals field, I would say, by 2014, because of the real estate companies, because they entered in distressed situation before the construction company, the infrastructure company.
I see.
And so we started learning this world inside some of the hugest real estate companies at that time. Some of them were our clients, and when our infrastructure clients they were hit as well, we were ready to help them.
Wow.
And this is what we did.
Convenient. So wow, this is amazing. It was planned.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? We are following the economic changes.
Yes.
We are following the economic changes.
But you were clever enough and sharp enough to see the opportunities behind that, inside all of that, because you could just say, oh, okay, oh, this I don't do. Okay, this is not for me. But no, this is for me. I'm going to do that.
It requires the same courage we had when we started the firm.
Yes.
Because we started the firm as and people used to call us the kids.
The kids.
At that time, the kids. But the energy or the mindset of the kids, we keep it.
Yes,
today.
And you are here at Avenida Brasil now in a huge office, a nice.
Yeah, then of course, many things changed from the downtown to where we are nowadays. And we had, I would say, the final part of the story, which is not final, it's just a part of the story. was that because of the infrastructure companies, we entered into the agribusiness sector. How come? Infrastructure companies developed their concessionaries, and the concessionaries started to operate logistic assets like harbors or like waterways. And who are the clients? Majority the agribusiness.
The players.
The agribusiness production.
Yes.
And the trading companies. And so we started working for some trading companies because they were the clients of this infrastructure companies. And then we knew them. We started understanding what was the real estate, what was the agribusiness field in this country, working for this big trading companies. And then we approached to the farmers, the producers.
Yes, you have to take. Yes, you have to get there.
Yeah, and we approached to them working. It's a daily base working, and in 2017 or 2018, we had a new movement in the distressed market in Brazil. That was the movement of the agribusiness sector. They started to enter into bankruptcy or judicial recovery, and we were there.
I'm telling you, you are everywhere. Oh my God!
And what I can tell you is that distress represents the major part of our work nowadays, the major part of our income in our firm, and this is very, very challenging in different sectors, because right after that, other sectors enter into distress. For example, the retail market, Americanas, a big example. We were in this case, and other sectors, because Brazil is a distressed field. It's a distressed company with many distressed opportunities, and then this is where we are nowadays. We are not a full-size firm because we don't do labor law and criminal law, but we do all the other practices. But we are concentrated in distressed deals, distressed opportunities with all the traditional legal practice, so corporate law, civil law, and taxes and insurance and everything, but in this particular approach. Sorry for the long story.
No, that's fantastic. That's adorable. And I was going to ask about cycles, but you just unfolded all the cycles that you went through throughout your journey. So a cycle that began and you knew how to end a cycle, to close a cycle, and to open another, and you took the opportunity. You didn't waste any opportunity. You took advantage of everything. You didn't left anything behind. It's amazing. And I was going to ask about the cycles, but the cycles are all there. And you talking about distressed deals, and although this may be also true to many other areas of the law, but providing legal services requires an understanding that legal practice is not confined to knowledge of the law alone. And this is something you have already shown here. But it calls for a deep understanding of business operations, financial principles, market dynamics, and the ability to think beyond conventional legal frameworks. Otherwise, it would be really challenging to craft innovative solutions. So what would you say are the ingredients? Okay, you have all of them, but what would you say are the most important ingredients for lawyers to become effective problem solvers in providing legal advice that is not only legally sound but also commercially viable. In fact, what did you say you had throughout all these challenges that you faced and from which you left successful, that you were successful? And what do you think are the main ingredients for being able to handle all that?
And this issue, I try to stay a little bit away from the traditional cliche that lawyers should know accountability, should know economics, should know, because this is not something, in my view, specifically for our profession. An engineer should know something about law, should know something about people management, and an economist should know something about the field he is working on, if it's, for example, infrastructure. So this is having a kind of wide knowledge on the fields you work is not a requirement for legal professional. It's a requirement for any kind of professional. So I would not say, and this is another important thing. In our profession, we usually say that, oh, a lawyer has to be this, that, has this knowledge. And sometimes it seems that our formal, I would say our formation, the way we are graduated, the content of our formation is weaker or is poorer compared to the content of formation of an engineer, for example, or a doctor. And this is not true. This is not true because
it may seem like there's always something missing.
Yeah. And if you compare to the others, they have the same black spot as well. If you a doctor doesn't have classes or challenges regarding law or regarding math or regarding so we are in the same boat. Different professionals, we are in the same boat. So this is a kind of fallacy when you say that this is a current discussion inside universities. I have to amend my program and inserting different knowledge areas because a lawyer has to be prepared in these different areas to succeed. That's true, but it happens in all the other professions. So this doesn't mean that our formation as lawyers is poor compared to other formations. And this is one point. The other point is that there is a big lack, a big distance of, in my view, having having classes on accountability or economics or whatever, and being good in this field and understand and really understand it. And this is why I don't have this kind of dream or I'm not naive to imagine that a university or a course is enough to prepare a lawyer for the challenges we have in our real cases. What prepares you for that is your experience. So you have to be experienced, you have to be tested, you have to, but the experience, it depends on how you explore your experience, because if you are not open to learn, open to listen, open to study, you're going to have a basic level of experience. So I would say that more important than the size of the deals you do or the complexity is your posture before it. And your aim, your desire to take everything you can from that experience in terms of knowledge. And this is, I would say, that is a kind of mindset. What makes difference in the end of the day is your mindset before the challenge. Because if you see as a simple job, I have to do this job today, you're gonna be in the ground. But if you're gonna rise up to the top of the mountain, you have to see the job as a big opportunity to learn.
Yes, from a perspective. Yes.
So this is I don't say this is an academic approach,
No, it is not. It is the person, is the mindset, the person, and the way they see the world, the way they face how do you see things? So this is an opportunity, this is also an opportunity, and this, okay, you kind of shift the way it's like thanking for having the opportunity of doing that and transforming it into something really valuable and profitable for you, profitable in every sense.
Yeah, you have to understand your limitations, but not be I would say, comfortable with your limitations. You have to circumvent them. You have to overcome them, and this is a hard work. This is 18-hour-a-day work.
It requires energy. Yes, you have to be willing to do that.
Yeah, very few vacations. You have
yes.
some of your weekends compromised. So
yeah,
it's very hard work.
Yeah, that's no secret at all. It's just doing it, and wow, that's amazing. And as a legal practitioner, okay, let's talk a little bit about risk, because you must often find yourself juggling business risk and legal risk. While they're not the same, of course, they can definitely bump into each other, especially in the context of M&A transaction, and where that risk is even more stressed, and in stressed deals, of course. And how do you strike a balance between these two when giving advice and when planning for a solution, especially when you might have to weigh one against the other? I mean, business and legal risk.
This is a very good question, and I think it's connected to the previous question, because in our business modeling, in our firm, we run a lot of risks along with our clients, which means that we collect success fees much more than hourly basis fees, meaning that we have to go deeper into the economics, into the feasibility of the business, and have to understand our client very well from different perspectives. And I'm including here personal perspectives in terms of values, in terms of reputation. And so the assessment of knowing our client is very deep. It's very cautious, because we take a part of the risk. This is one thing. And I would say that the challenge of that is that if you are mistaken, you don't get paid. You don't get paid. The benefit of that is that we learn every day directly from the source what is the business. It's not theoretical. It's not coming from a paper, but it's coming from the reality. And we have to be in touch with the owner, with the high-level management, and we have to discuss the further steps of the companies or the further steps of the deal. And so we learn a lot from this way we do our business, which is running risk of decline. This is I would say, our kind of the big opportunity we have to recycle our practice. This is why we move through different channels throughout our history, because we learn directly from the source. From the legal risks perspective, I would say that this is more standard, because then we just do what we do, our regular job. But what we usually add to our reflections or to our services for our clients is that we separate risk from uncertainty. And this is a subject I'm passionate for, because this was part of my PhD research. And here in Brazil, which is very different from other jurisdictions, is that we have much more uncertainties than risk. And risk, if I could provide a definition, it's also my perspective, my personal perspective. Risk is a measurable variable inside what is aleatory. So you have inside what is aleatory some parts that are measurable and some that are not. What is measurable, we call risk. What is unmeasurable, we call uncertainty. Because Risk, you can make a kind of forecast exercise, and you can price it.
Yes.
Uncertainty, you can't. And you can imagine, but you cannot forecast, and for sure you cannot price it. And so what we have in a country with so many institutional problems and so many disarrangements, I would say, when we don't have the legal assurance that all the lawyers would love to have, we are not playing the game of risk. We are playing the game of uncertainty, and uncertainty you just handle, you just manage. And this is where you have the connection between business risks and legal risks. When you do distressed deals, you have to learn how to manage the uncertainty. And this is a very hard job. And this is a very, very, I would say, it's a kind of war. You are inside of a war with several battles, different battles, because you have battles in the labor field, you have battles in the tax field, you have the battles in the corporate law field, in the environmental field, and you all the time have the institutions pursuing the entrepreneur for different reasons, and then you have to manage it as well. And in Brazil, once we don't have a clear spreadsheet for anything, so you barely know how you start, but for sure never know how you're gonna end. This is I would say that this is the jungle, this is the business jungle where we live. And this is why I say, and I said in the beginning, that a foreign lawyer would
never be able to tackle
many
that.
difficulties,
Drive him crazy to say, oh, this is not written in the book.
How can you provide a legal opinion here in Brazil?
Yes.
If you do that, this is why when you do that, you have so many disclaimers. So your legal opinion is theoretical.
Yes, you have. Wow, that's amazing. And I appreciate how you've shared that perspective, because how you handle the complexities and with a focus on achieving the best possible outcome for the client. And because even when it means making a tough call, because and here lies your risk. The risk that is not you face the problem, and then it's like you are I would say that it is like if you were inside a lab, and you were trying, and you were mixing the components and trying to come out with a solution that wasn't written anywhere. So you just have to craft it. This is the beauty of the thing. So I'm sure our viewers are finding this insight incredibly valuable. Okay, go ahead. You were saying?
No, just say that if for just a mental map, we can separate the markets in I would say the web. I put it for the highest level, whereas the web, the internet, the way we know it, the web, where supposedly everything has a rule, and you have stability, and you have how to forecast many things. Then you have the deep web. The deep web, a level under, where you don't have it. Somehow you have a little bit of legal references, but you don't have jurisprudence. You don't have clear regulatory parameters.
Standards,
and then you have and then you have the dark web, and the dark web is is where you face uncertainties all over the place. Uncertainties are all around, and this is where we see the most complex distressed deals you can guess, because
I can imagine,
because then you have to make real turnarounds. You have to it's more than it's I'll not say there it's a creation in terms of being pretentious that we are creating things, but you have to escape from shooting coming from anywhere. So you have to develop new shields. You have to develop to work with different speed, You
Yes.
have to change the way you see the due diligence risk, for example.
And
this is a very, very different world.
And to face all that, you have to have such a story, such a history, or a history like yours. So you have to go through things, go through different situations and challenging situations to be able to face the new ones. Otherwise, because
Yes.
again, it's not written anywhere. And now let's go back a bit to the agribusiness. You coordinated the book Direito Empresarial e Agronegócio, Corporate Law and Agribusiness. And it highlights the essential legal areas that agribusiness managers need to handle. Now, could you tell us how do you see the legal landscape for agribusiness evolving in the next decade?
Yeah, this is interesting, and I'm connecting it to the real estate story as well, because I see the agribusiness sector in a very similar position to the real estate sector 15 years ago or 20 years ago. In the last, I would say, 7 years, the agribusiness sector, the same way the real estate did 20 years before, started to sophisticate their financial solutions. They started to create their own business routes and changing the pieces of the game. For example, when we started working for the trading companies were the agribusiness in Brazil, because the farmers they had access to public capital, public funding coming from Banco do Brasil, the Brazilian federal bank, but they didn't have, for example, the expertise in managing logistics, the transportation. They didn't have the expertise in managing currency risk, exchange rate risks, because they sell in different coins, and so they didn't have this. They didn't have this expertise. They didn't have the expertise to reach their own clients personally, Chinese or coming from other parts of the world, and so the trading companies were the middleman. They were the sophisticated agribusiness in Brazil, because they had all of these skills, all of these knowledges, and all this sophistication. What happened was that we had some in different parts of the country, but I would say mostly in Mato Grosso, mostly in the center west, Mato Grosso, Mato Grosso do Sul, and a little bit in the north, and more nowadays, more in the north, families that did pretty well. They are now big, huge entrepreneurs, and the second or third generation, they were educated, they were prepared to this new reality that is a more globalized world for the agribusiness sector. So nowadays, many of them, they don't need the trading company, they don't need the middleman.
Yes, because the new generations are handling that.
Yes, and they can go directly to the Chinese, and they can go directly to Faria Lima to raise capital. And so now we have, it's not nowadays, but from 7 years, I would say in the last 7 or 8 years, we have a new perspective in the agribusiness, because we have this big farmers, big entrepreneurs prepared to do their own business without the middleman. And then we are facing the same story of real estate, because when you have this access to capital, and when we professionalize your business and you grow very fast, right after you enter into bankruptcy, it's a cycle.
Oh, God.
And this is why we are having the increasing of judicial recovery proceedings in agribusiness in the last 5 years, which provoked even an amendment in the regulation in our law of insolvency here in Brazil. And this is, and I think that we are going to have for the following years, the same challenges. So these big groups will have to, I would say, redesign part of their business, recalibrate their capital structure, and some of them will be merged. Some of them, so the market is probably going to change, because they grew up so fast that we were pretty sure that one day they will fall down. What is naturally in all the economic business, and as we are discussing here, we are doing this for the last 20 years, and we saw this
Yes.
in the other. We saw this in
Ah.
our skin in this time, and so this is what I see in the agribusiness, but I don't see this as a particular bad news. It's natural. The market cleans it up, and the
Okay.
market rearranges the pieces, and this depends on several variables, but this goes following the I would say what is Brazil in the world? And Brazil in the world is a big farm, so we cannot deny that. It's be stupid to deny that. And being the farm of the world, we will always have big opportunities, but we will always have big challenges.
Yes.
And those challenges will change following the change all over the globe. If we change, for example, if our client is no longer China, and then it's India, or if there is a war somewhere. So, and if we have a kind of shipping issue because we have the let's say enormous increase in the demand for shipping. So this is I would say that a lawyer that works in this field shall be open to understand geopolitics as well, and shall be open to understand some public policies we have here in Brazil for the agribusiness sector and on other sectors, but specifically for the agribusiness sector, and then help the client to create the tools, to develop the tools to deal with this global contest, because agribusiness is very global, so you have to be global as well. And then having relationships with foreign law firms is very, very important. This is why we, in the last 10 years, work very hard on that. We have very good connections throughout about 200 countries all over the world, including Africa. So we are in the last 10 years being very close to some of the main law firms in different jurisdictions, particularly because of the agribusiness as well.
Yes. Wow. Great job. You're doing great. Fantastic. Fantastic. Now we're going to shift a bit to the legal aspect of my
the
questions.
Boring part. Okay.
Yeah, no, the boring part. Yeah, the boring part. The boring part. Yes, we've already had a lot of fun. But I was going to ask you, Professor, how has corporate law or corporate legal practice in Brazil been engaging with precedents? Because you mentioned the other jurisdictions, and we see that case law now plays more than ever plays a significant role in the Brazilian legal system. So how are corporate lawyers handling this reality, considering that we are from a civil law, we have a civil law tradition?
Yes, I would say that more important than what is written in the law is what is decided by the courts when you have to make a
there
decision.
You have it. There you have it.
Yes, then you have to make a business decision because what we were talking about, the uncertainty and the risks, is strictly related to the way the courts are ruling the regulation in all the sectors, but in corporate law as well. And so I would say that we live clearly nowadays in a mixed regime. We are not a civil law country anymore, far away from that. And this is very weird, because when we study in our traditional formation the basic law, the private law, law of introduction, everything, we have this idea as students that we live in a place where law prevails, but this is not true. And I'm not here entering into the discussion of interpretation. This is not the case, because in the corporate law, many of the rules are not exactly open to so many different interpretations. They are clear. Of course, we have problems, but they are clear. And coming from nowhere, a judge or a court decides that what is written there is no longer valid, and
valid
that's
or
it.
applicable.
Yeah, and that's it. And so we have, I would say that we have in the corporate law many challenges, and I'll give you an example. I've written about it. I have made a research on the methodology of calculating the amount a company shall pay to a partner that leaves the company. Leaves through being excluded because he acted in a wrongdoing, or because he died, whatever. It doesn't matter the reason he left the company. And as we know, when a partner leaves a company, he has to make some money or get something from the company. And we have here in Brazil, yes, he has to liquidate the shares, change it to a value, a price. And we have here in Brazil rules for that in the Civil Code and the Brazilian Civilian Procedure Code that are being applicable every day in a completely different manner. If you compare, I'm not talking about different courts, but the same court. For example, if you take the São Paulo state court, you're going to see so many different decisions on this issue.
Yes, they're not.
Because
they're not consistent.
Yeah, and this is a kind of unknown issue, and people seem to be afraid of challenging this issue. And this is just an example. We have others, but it's fully dependent on the jurisprudence. We are lucky to have jurisprudence coming up through a final decision from Superior Court of Justice, for example, STJ, or if you have that statements, we call enunciados, that statements issued by the local courts, that this is amazing, because then you have a standpoint because it's never final. It's just a standpoint. But if you don't have it, it's managing uncertainty. Uncertainty.
And there's another issue, which is the level of technical knowledge that the judge has to have. The judge, I mean, today we have the specialized courts, the corporate courts here in São Paulo, in the Court of Appeals, but it is not it is not the rule in the whole country. So to add to that complicated scenario, we have the circumstance that judges must or should be trained in corporate law, because this is also another layer of the problem, because they have to know what they are deciding, because sometimes they don't.
Yes, and this is a problem starting from the way the judges are selected, because the public context has a very limited content of business law, corporate law. So they focus on family law, they focus on rights of personality, other things, or the rights of the consumer. So this is what I would say the main agenda. In corporate law, it's not the main agenda by far.
Yes, should be.
When they have to rule on a corporate law litigation, for example, it's very hard, because there is a particular language. When we have this world, there's a particular language, and then if you have never entered into a company, I think of a judge that just was accepted by the court and passed the last 3 years studying inside library, and before of that was just a let's say beginner in practicing law, and then he has to rule a conflict of $1 million or $1 million reais, never been inside a company, never joining a negotiation process, never being part of a discussion on how hard it is to raise capital, raise funds in Brazil, and how hard it is to establish a very trustful relationship through a contract in Brazil, because as we know, contracts are not very well respected down here. So if you bring it all this stuff to somebody that is not experienced, minimum experience in that, is very, very difficult.
Yes.
Very difficult. So it's the specialization we have here in São Paulo is a winning. We have to enhance that, celebrate that. And we in our firm, we celebrate that. We consider that nowadays, despite of course, problems we have, but nowadays the state court is capable to compete with the arbitration procedures. Meaning, for me,
that's what another aspect.
For me, it's not an automatic decision. Oh, this legal transaction, business transaction goes directly through the arbitration procedure.
Arbitration.
No, not anymore.
Not anymore.
Because we have here a kind of now we are having jurisprudence. Now we are having structure for this kind of cases in our courts that sometimes are much better than what we find in the arbitration chambers, for example. And because we sometimes the time is crucial, and the time of the judge is much faster than the time of an arbitration court, for example. And there are other reasons for that, but we have to celebrate and enhance this specialization. And as professionals, every time we have the opportunity to support this, we should do. And the judge in the first level, that the judges that are being hit every day by this case, I don't know if they made agreement among them, but they are very open to discuss. They have a kind of way of doing their job, starting being prepared before the audience. So they never entered, in our experience, I'm talking about our experience at SABZ, in the last years, every time we were in a hearing, the judge was prepared.
Wow.
The judge was ready to make good questions, right questions. And every time we had to approach them to explain details, some technicalities, they were
ready
incredibly interested in understanding and in learning. So the relationship in this field is different from the traditional judge, I'd say, or the traditional court, where you have that big distance between the judge and the lawyers, and so many formalities. This for sure doesn't work for the business law. It doesn't work. So you need to have a more fluid communication. But these judges, they work a lot. They have people think that if they have, for example, 10 cases compared to a colleague with 100 cases, their life is easier. It's the contrary. Because 10 cases in business law, I can assure you that's gonna demand much more hard work than 100 cases of different other practices in law. So
other fields
here,
of law.
We are lucky to have it.
Yes, this is good news, and this is good news, and this okay, I could stay here forever talking about that, because and here we are lucky enough in São Paulo, and at the Court of Appeals especially, it's a huge, they are highly qualified. And oh Lord, but we have to bring our conversation to a close, but in this high note, to keep the high note here, I'd love to give you the floor for you to lay out your thoughts on the future of the legal profession. Professor, I always mention him, Richard Susskind, has been a visionary in this area, highlighting the transformative of technology, the evolving nature of legal work, and the need to greater access to justice. But I would like to know, where do you see the legal profession heading in the coming years? And it can also refer to AI, but I would like to know, what advice would you give to lawyers, both young and seasoned, as they manage these changes? It would be great if you could wrap up with a high note in your insights into how we can embrace the future with optimism and readiness.
Okay, this is in the uncertainty field, but but let's try to manage
Yes,
it.
for sure.
First of all, the numbers show that legal profession is more and more a female profession. So the numbers show that, for example, in the first years of the university, you have about 70% or more of
Wow.
female. So this is clearly becoming a female profession. We see that in our classes in different levels, including in post-graduation. And we also see the numbers show that the youth are less interested in our career than they used to be 20 years ago. Let's put it this way. I'll give you a general number, considering FUVEST, which is the contest to access University of São Paulo. In 2016, the number of the applications for the test, the number was about 12,000 candidates. 4 years later, 2020, it was about 10,000, so 2,000 less. And in 2024, it's about 8,000. So
wow.
in 8 years, it went down from 12 to 8,000.
To 8.
Big numbers, meaning that other careers are bringing more interest to the youth. And so that boom we had in our profession, with many law schools being open every day and big classes and whatever, I don't see there's a kind of tendency for the future. I think that we are going to have accommodation and probably many of these institutions will be closed, and so the legal market won't grow forever. This is people fear that our market will grow forever. I don't think so. I think it's going to be stabilized one day or another. This is one thing. So it's going to be a female profession. It is actually, but it's going to be more female profession and with less candidates or less attraction to the youth. On the artificial intelligence, AI perspective, I don't see many differences compared to other professions as well. I don't see our profession being more influenced compared to to the economists, to the engineers. What I see is that these new technologies will challenge the big law in the country and all over the world, because the big law, they work with due diligence, for example. They work with standardized documentation, and this is part of the reason they have so many people there. And when you have technology at the level of creating new documents coming from what is standardized, you're not gonna need so many people inside. And so for them, for big law, I think that this is more critical, and it's because we still measure, I'll not say the competence, but we still measure the relevance of a law firm. It's not only Brazilian approach, it's worldwide. Counting the number of lawyers or number of partners. It's a kind of head count measure, which for me doesn't make any sense, but this is the way it is. And this is probably going to change, because, for example, you take a firm of the Magic Circle in London with 5,000 lawyers. It's probably going to change, because they have already outsourced major part of the standardized job to India, and they are going to outsource it to the AI, because every time we talk about something that is standardized, the technology does much better than we humans do. And so the big firm, the big law, will have to think on how they will keep their business modeling, or if they're going to change their business modeling, because this headcount would probably not be necessary in the near future. But apart from that, I don't see the AI challenging for example, the field we work on, distressed deals, because everything or almost everything we do is a single child. We don't have repetition. We don't have
So you're
massification.
You're safe. Thank you.
I would say we are quite offline. We're not that online, and so I don't see that. But sure, it's gonna have some kind of interference, but not an interference that would push us to change our business model. And this is different for the big law, I think.
Yeah, you are right. Okay, well, we have to close here. Professor Kleber, thank you so much. I couldn't thank you enough for your time and the truly priceless insights you've shared with us today. It's been an enlightening conversation. I'm sure our viewers have gained a lot from your expertise and from your experience, mostly. To all our viewers, a warm thank you for joining us once again. We appreciate your continued support and enthusiasm for all of these discussions. And before we wrap things up, I would just like to say, keep yourselves open to learning, as Professor just emphasized, to learning every step of the way. Don't shy away from taking up new challenges, and always be ready to embrace what comes your way. So it's in those moments that we really grow and move forward. So remember, stay driven, stay determined, keep learning, keep leading, and see you on the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.